I wanted to talk to you guys about, like, how you work through feeling ashamed of, like, sexual things you rationally know are totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, so I was raised as a Catholic. I call myself a recovering ex-Catholic. And the whole culture of, like, silence juxtaposed with this idea of confession and confessional, I find makes it really difficult for me to navigate conversations around consent. And yeah, I guess I wanted to talk through that with someone.
Yeah, for sure.
Walk me through that a little bit. How do you put the dots together?
So I always got in, what made me think about it earlier was you guys were kind of talking about, like, informational control in the homeschool environment.
Sure.
And I wasn't homeschooled, but I was almost entirely, all my education was from Catholic schools. And my parents took on a lot of that informational control themselves, like, just around other topics. And so if I was ever caught looking at sexual information or pornography or something gay or reading something gay, or I would always get punished for it. And I'd always have to be brought out and had a serious sit-down conversation with my parents and basically confess to them. And it makes me never want to talk about what I like. Because I feel like I'm going to be thought of as bad and dirty again. And
when there's only one type of sex, you don't really need to talk about the sex that you're having. You know, when it is all this very, like, submissive to the husband, procreative, missionary style sex, and pleasure's not coming into it, you know, it's strictly heteronormative. I mean, even still, there are conversations we should be having, but in that context, we're not really teaching kids, or kids in that situation aren't learning how to talk about sex at all. And so the concept of consent, you're right, isn't going to come into that, let alone pleasure.
Right, especially for, people who were born in female bodies. Like, it's not something that you're even taught is a thing. Like, I can't speak for what my brothers were taught, but for me, because that was separate too, that concept of the boys talk to the boys about sex and the women talk to the girls about, like, that. It wasn't a collaborative thing at all. But yeah, the idea that I could have pleasure or should prioritize it in any way was completely it wasn't even on the table. It was extremely different to have a partner or to have somebody who is like, hey, what do you like? Tell me what you like. I was like, I don't know. What do I like? You're going to have to tell me. It feels really weird. But yeah, I completely empathize with that.
Yeah. I'd repeat V, but I repeat V. Ditto.
I appreciate it. Wow, that was, like, really interesting for Christy to say what you said, because I only can really get off to, like, some pretty disciplinary BDSM stuff, and I think it's because, like, my control over the situation is completely taken away, so I feel like I'm not sinning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because I didn't have a choice.
I think that's a pretty common experience, and there's value in knowing that about yourself, like in running that desire to ground and being able to say, like, oh, this was probably caused by that. But it's also not necessary, so I'd hope you don't feel bound to it, and pardon the pun. But in addition to that, there are opportunities to sort of, like, expand your diet. There's not necessarily a need to, but I think of it in terms of, like, somebody who only eats rice and beans every night. If you're healthy and happy, great. But if you begin to just sort of slightly dabble in some noodles, or, you go from rice to rice-a-roni, and I mean, there is opportunity to sort of expand your repertoire if that's something that you're looking to pursue.
Right, you've heard it here first, folks. Secular sexuality suggests you dabble in some noodles.
Dabble in noodles.
Dabble in some noodles.
No, I think...
I love ramen.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really important thing to know about yourself, and to have come to that conclusion shows that you do put a lot of thought behind this, which is amazing, and more than a lot of people do. So kudos to you for that, for sure.
Let me follow that up very quickly just by saying you called this show... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you, but I just wanted to point out, you called this show and you're talking about your sexual preferences on live air over the internet. And
not to freak you out.
Not to, make that super terrifying all of a sudden, but the fact that you had the courage and the capacity to do that when I know so many folks don't. I don't know where you're at in your journey in terms of deconstructing these things and healing from some of these traumas, but certainly you're able to do this, and that sounds like a real accomplishment from where you came, and it's terribly impressive.
Yes.
In other words, go Susanna!
Yay!
Oh, you guys are so sweet. Yeah, I really wanted to challenge myself to call in because I studied psychology and I want to continue to study psychology, and I know that experience will help refute my indoctrination. I need to have some positive reinforcement, and this was really good practice.
Man, you jumped to the 50-yard line here. You were like, this wasn't just practice, this is it. You're doing it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep trying.
Yeah. Another thing, just real quick, and I don't know where you are in terms of relationships with people, but something that can really help is to have a partner who is willing to have these conversations and who is patient in understanding that this is where you're coming from. So definitely that's something that I would be on the lookout for as well, making sure that you're entering into these sexual experiences with people who will listen to you and ask you questions and be willing to have that back and forth, because that's not everybody either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I'm single right now, so it's putting myself out there can be, a little nerve-wracking. But, again, I gotta try. I gotta, keep trying.
Well, definitely call back and let us know how it goes.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys a lot, and I hope you had a happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.